So I've always been intrigued by the links between video games and education. And part of that is just this idea of why students really love video games, but a lot of them don't really like school. When in actual fact, both of these activities are all about learning, building new skills, practicing, getting better, improvement. So why is it that they like one and not the other? And so I thought this might be a cool way to explore the cognitivist concept of cognitive load, and how that might apply to learning something like a video game. So when I was a kid, I did not have an Xbox, but a lot of my friends did, and they would invite me around to play Halo, which is a complex game. It involves, lots of complicated button presses with different variations. You've got, you have to understand the gameplay itself, and then you also have to apply strategy and, different techniques. And so it was just too much for me to learn, so I never got good at it. I was terrible, and despite, a couple of times trying to play it, I just wasn't good at it. The problem is because I wasn't able to learn effectively because the learning situation had too great of a cognitive load. So in the Duchesne and McMaugh reading, they break up cognitive load into a few different aspects. So firstly, there's the intrinsic load. So this is about the complexity and the difficulty of the task itself. In my situation, it was very high. It's a hard game to learn how to play, and there was a lot that I had to learn all at once, and I just wasn't able to get proficient at it. We also have the extraneous cognitive load. These are other factors in the learning environment, not specifically about the task itself, but they might be taking away some of the processing power. So in my example, I was in a social situation, so I had to put some mental effort into chatting with my friends and, actively working on these social relationships is very important, and it made it even more difficult for me to learn. So let's look at a different game, something that we're all pretty familiar with, and most of us have had probably some experience at learning. So this is Super Mario, and Super Mario has a expertly designed level graduation system where, when you very first start, first time ever playing, there's no threat to Mario. Here you are just standing around, you can move around, you may have tried moving left, you realize you can't go that way, you try moving right, you get a feel for this, okay? Then we move on to something else. Now blocks are introduced. What is this block going to do? We also introduced to an enemy, which on your first try, you'll probably get killed by it. And then as you go, more and more things are introduced, like obstacles, etc. And away you go. Everything's broken down for you. This is the idea, also coming from the Duchesne and McMahon reading, of chunking. Breaking up the information into separate pieces so that it's easier for us to learn and take it in. The other really cool thing about the way Mario designs its level is that as you approach each new obstacle, each new thing that you're going to have to learn how to do, you're also applying all the other working knowledge that you've already built up. Okay? And this is related to the concept of the germane cognitive load. And so taking from an article by Plus, Moreno and Brunken, actually a book, I'm sorry, the germane cognitive load relates to how much working memory the learner is applying during that learning experience. And it's actually been found that a high level of germane cognitive load can actually be conducive to the learning experience. So essentially what we're trying to do here is when you're designing your learning experiences, we want the learner to be using a lot of germane cognitive load, so using a lot of their working knowledge while they're learning, but we want to limit the extraneous cognitive load. So let's take away distractions, things that are getting in the way. And then the intrinsic load, well, sometimes you can do something about that, but often it is the task that it is. And you may not be able to make it any simpler, but thinking about all of this, should be beneficial for the learner. Something that comes to my mind when I'm thinking about this, and a nice analogy would be something like bandwidth or bottlenecking. If I'm thinking of if you turn up a milk jug upside down, and the milk can't get out, there's just too much trying to squeeze through there, and it takes ages. Whereas a nice steady pour will actually get the milk out faster. So thinking of it in that way, the learning needs to be, gradual and steady and not too much at one time. Otherwise, you disrupt the entire process. Thank you for listening. It's my first attempt at a video presentation, so thanks a lot.